In the darkness of the night, the only light came from the flickering flames of the campfire. The woods were eerily quiet. In the heart of the wilderness, under a sky that was a vast canvas smeared with the inky blackness of the night, the only signs of life were the crackling campfire and the occasional hoot of a distant owl. A chilling breeze whispered through the trees, carrying with it the scent of damp earth and the promise of an impending storm. The campfire, with its dancing flames casting long, distorted shadows, was a solitary beacon in this desolate landscape. Each flicker of the flame, each pop and hiss of the burning wood seemed to echo into the endless night. The fire was an island of warmth and light in a sea of darkness, a fragile barrier against the unknown threats that lurked in the encroaching shadows. Around the fire, the campers huddled, their faces illuminated by the glow of the flames. Their laughter and chatter were swallowed by the immensity of the forest, leaving behind a silence so profound it was almost tangible. It was a silence that gripped you, a silence that made you question every rustle, every whisper that the wind carried. The isolation was palpable. The woods, with their towering trees and impenetrable undergrowth, seemed to close in from every side. Their wild, untouched beauty was a stark reminder of how far removed this place was from the comfort and safety of civilization. It was a place that was as mesmerizing as it was intimidating, a place that held an almost primal allure. Yet, beneath the tranquility, there was an undercurrent of unease, the feeling of being watched, of unseen eyes tracking every movement, every breath. It was a feeling that was impossible to shake off, a feeling that gnawed at the edges of consciousness, turning the serene into the sinister. As the fire burned down and the shadows grew longer, the campers huddled closer, their voices dropped to whispers, their laughter replaced by apprehension. They were yet to realize they were not alone. They were yet to understand they were not the predators in these woods, but the prey. Little did they know the real terror was yet to come. Huddled around the fire, the campers began to share their own tales of terror. It was an eclectic ensemble, each camper a unique tapestry of fears and secrets, woven with threads of past experiences that were about to unfold. First, there was Riley, a seasoned adventurer who had trekked through the darkest forests and climbed the highest peaks. He spun a tale of a shadowy figure he'd encountered in the wilderness, a creature that stalked him with glowing red eyes and left footprints that vanished without a trace. His story sent shivers down the spines of his fellow campers, his words painting a vivid picture of the fear that gripped him during that harrowing encounter. Next came Maya, a city girl who had only experienced the wilderness through screens and books. Yet, her story was no less terrifying. She told a tale of an old, abandoned building in her neighborhood, where spine-chilling cries could be heard in the dead of the night. The building was said to be haunted by the spirit of a woman who had met a tragic end. As she narrated her tale, the crackling fire seemed to echo the eerie cries of the haunted building, making the campers huddle closer together. Then there was Ethan, the quiet one, who had always been a mystery to the others. His story was about a haunted doll he'd found in his grandmother's attic. The doll, he said, would mysteriously move around the house and at night whisper unspeakable things. His story, told with an unsettling calm, left the campers glancing nervously at the shadows around them. The stories flowed one after another, each tale more chilling than the last. The campfire, once a source of comfort and warmth, now seemed to dance with the monstrous figures from their tales. The suspense hung heavy in the air, a palpable tension that you could almost taste. As the last tale ended, a chilling wind blew through the campsite, extinguishing the fire. The sudden darkness felt like a tangible manifestation of their shared fears. The stories had ended, but the real terror was just beginning. In the sudden darkness, the campers huddled together, fear creeping into their hearts. The once comforting rustle of leaves and the gentle night breeze carried an eerie chill, a chill that whispered tales of the unseen, of lurking shadows and dreadful secrets that the woods held. The once comforting symphony of night sounds had morphed into a discordant melody. The hoot of an owl, the chirping of crickets, the rustling of leaves all seemed to carry an ominous undertone. The campers clutched their flashlights tighter, their eyes darting around the darkness, their ears straining to catch any unusual sound. Suddenly, a twig snapped, a sound so loud in the deafening silence that it seemed like a gunshot. The campers froze, their hearts pounding in their chests. They strained their eyes into the darkness, their breaths held in anticipation. Another twig snapped, closer this time. Fear gnawed at their bravery as they realized they were not alone in the woods. The wind picked up, howling through the trees, stirring the leaves into a frenzy. The shadows seemed to dance around them, taking on grotesque shapes, whispering tales of terror. The campers huddled closer, their flashlights casting long, wavering shadows that only served to heighten their fear. The very air seemed to throb with tension. The sense of dread grew, wrapping around them like a shroud. It was as if the woods had come alive, watching them, waiting. The campers could feel a presence, a malignant entity that seemed to grow stronger with their fear. Then they heard it. A low growl, a sound so primal, so terrifying that it seemed to freeze the blood in their veins. The growl echoed around them, seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The reality of their situation crashed down on them. They were not alone. Something was out there in the darkness, stalking them, hunting them. A blood-curdling scream echoed through the woods, followed by silence. Panic set in. The campers scattered, running blindly through the dark woods. As if a switch had been flipped, the tranquil sanctuary of the forest transformed into a haunting labyrinth, each twisted tree a potential hiding spot for the unseen terror. An ominous wind swept through the woods, its chilling breath rustling leaves and whispering secrets of the horrors lurking in the darkness. The campers, driven by pure instinct and fear, darted through the underbrush, their breaths ragged and hearts pounding like war drums. The once familiar paths twisted into unfamiliar trails, each turn leading them deeper into the heart of the forest. The unseen terror, an embodiment of their darkest nightmares, was relentless in its pursuit. It was as if the beast was playing a macabre game of cat and mouse, toying with its prey, savoring the thrill of the hunt. The ambiguity of the creature only fueled the terror, its formless presence a chilling reminder of the unknown. One by one, the campers were picked off. Their desperate cries for help were swallowed by the thick blanket of darkness, their pleas echoing across the desolate expanse. The forest, once filled with the harmonious symphony of nocturnal creatures, now resonated with the spine-chilling screams of the hunted. As the chase unfolded, the campers began to realize the grim reality of their situation. Each fallen comrade, each stifled scream, was a chilling testament to the relentless predator that hunted them. The woods seemed to stretch on forever, the once familiar trails now a never-ending maze of terror. With every passing second, the campers' hope dwindled. The once comforting canopy of trees now seemed to close in on them, the darkness pressing against their skin like an oppressive weight. Their breaths came in ragged gasps, their lungs burning with the desperate need for air, their hearts pounding with the primal fear of the hunted. The once tranquil night was now filled with the echoes of their terrified screams, the chilling symphony of their despair. Each cry was a stark reminder of their impending doom, a haunting melody that echoed through the desolate woods, a chilling testament to the relentless horror that hunted them. One by one they fell, their screams echoing through the night. The once tranquil forest had transformed into a terrifying hunting ground, each fallen camper a grim testament to the relentless terror that lurked in the darkness. The forest, once a sanctuary, was now a maze of horror, a chilling reminder of the unknown dangers that lurked in the shadows. The chase was far from over, the unseen terror relentless in its pursuit. The campers, driven by primal fear and desperation, continued their futile attempt to escape. their terrified screams echoing through the darkness, a chilling symphony of their despair. One by one, they fell, their screams echoing through the night. The forest, once a sanctuary, was now a chilling hunting ground, each fallen camper a grim testament to the relentless terror that lurked in the shadows. The woods, once a place of peace and tranquility, had transformed into a haunting labyrinth of fear and despair, a chilling testament to the terrifying power of the unseen. The last camper stood his ground, heart pounding, waiting for the inevitable. He could feel the chill of the night seeping into his bones, but it was the icy tendrils of fear that truly made him shiver. His friends were gone, swallowed by the darkness and the unseen terror that lurked within it. His breath misted in the cold air, each exhale a stark reminder of the life he still clung to, a life he was not ready to surrender. His fingers tightened around the makeshift weapon in his hand, the rough wood biting into his skin. It was a paltry defense against the unseen terror, yet it was all he had. Every snap of a twig, every rustle of leaves sent adrenaline coursing through his veins. His mind conjured up 1,000 horrifying images of what the unseen terror could be. A monster, a ghost, or something far worse, something that couldn't be explained by logic or reason. But he couldn't afford to let his imagination run wild. He needed to focus, to channel his fear into determination. He was the last one left, the final hope, and he would not go quietly into the night. Around him, the forest seemed to hold its breath. The silence was oppressive, heavy with anticipation. The unseen terror was out there, somewhere, watching, waiting. The final confrontation was imminent. He could feel it in his bones. He squared his shoulders, lifting his chin. His heart pounded in his chest like a war drum, matching the rhythm of his thoughts. Fight, survive, live. He repeated the words to himself, a mantra against the paralyzing fear, and then it was there. A shift in the shadows, a low growl that echoed through the silent forest, raising the hairs on the back of his neck. The unseen terror, no longer unseen. Its form was indistinct, a darker patch of darkness, a void in the shape of a nightmare. His breath hitched in his throat, his grip on the makeshift weapon faltering for a heartbeat. But then he remembered his mantra: fight, survive, live. His fear was replaced by a surge of determination. He would not be the final victim. He would not let the unseen terror win. He took a step forward, then another. Each movement was a defiance, a challenge. He would not be hunted. He would be the hunter. His heart roared in his chest, a wild, untamed thing. The unseen terror responded, a growl that seemed to shake the very ground beneath his feet. But he didn't falter. He couldn't. He was the last camper, the final stand. With a final scream, he charged, disappearing into the darkness. As the sun rose, the woods were eerily silent once again. The dawn's early light, normally a symbol of hope and new beginnings, only served to illuminate the chilling aftermath of the night's terror. The once lively campsite, a haven of laughter and camaraderie, was now a ghostly tableau of abandonment and fear. The remnants of the campfire, once a beacon of warmth and safety, lay charred and extinguished, a grim reminder of the night's chilling events. The tents, once filled with the sounds of laughter and whispered stories, stood empty and desolate. Their occupants, victims of the night's horror, had been swallowed by the depths of the forest. The chilling silence was occasionally broken by the rustling of leaves or the distant hoot of an owl, but the usual orchestra of forest sounds was conspicuously absent. The woods themselves seemed to be holding their breath, as if the echoes of the night's terror still hung heavy in the air. The lingering sense of fear was palpable, like a dense fog that refused to lift. It clung to every tree, every blade of grass, transforming the once welcoming forest into a landscape of dread. The forest, which had once been a place of adventure and exploration, was now a haunted graveyard of memories, forever scarred by the events of the night. And yet, life goes on. The sun continued its ascent, its rays piercing through the dense canopy of leaves, casting long, eerie shadows that danced and flickered with the wind. The forest began to stir, the first brave creatures venturing out to reclaim their home. But the tranquility was only skin deep, a thin veneer barely masking the underlying horror. The woods may be silent, but the echoes of the midnight terrors will forever haunt these woods. The chilling tales of the creepy Campfire Chronicles Unleashed will continue to be whispered around fires, forever reminding us of the darkness that lurks in the shadows, waiting for the cover of night to strike again. The night of terror had ended, but the memories remained. As we journey back through the shadows of our tale, we find ourselves stepping once more into the realm of the eerie and unknown, where the unseen terror first took root. The horror began subtly, with chilling stories whispered under the cloak of night, each tale more bone-chilling than the last, weaving a tapestry of fear and suspense. The terror then revealed itself in its full, horrifying glory, sparking a heart-stopping chase that had us on the edge of our spectral seats. Each turn, each twist, only added to the mounting dread, and then the final stand. A showdown between the brave and the beastly, a battle for survival under the haunting moonlight. And so ends another chapter of our creepy Campfire Chronicles. Remember, the fear you feel, it's unleashed. So, as the embers of our campfire fade, we retreat into the shadows. Until next time, when we dare to unleash more midnight terrors.